This story takes place last summer. I have a dog named George. He's a lab and has lots of energy, so I take him on walks all the time. During one of our walks down the street into the park last summer, I noticed that the sky was getting really dark and cloudy, and it was feeling really cold all of a sudden. We had walked to the park that was about 20 minutes away through our pretty average neighborhood. It was in the evening at about 7 p.m., and up until that point in the day, it had been warm and sunny. I realized that a big storm was coming in. I decided to turn around with George and go back home before it would start to rain. Usually, I would let George run around the park a little bit, but things didn't look so good outside at all. We walked back home, and I tried to go at a quicker pace as I saw more dark clouds rolling in and started to hear thunder off in the distance. At last, we finally made it back to our street, and as we did, we could start to feel raindrops and the strong cold wind that was blowing around. I got to the front door of my house and unlocked it. Then George and I went inside. Literally less than a minute later, it started to downpour outside, and there was loud thunder and lightning as well. It seemed like a huge thunderstorm was hitting, and I decided to close all my windows around the house that had been open, and I had to turn most of the lights on, because between the sun setting and the sky being so dark from the clouds, you couldn't see much of anything. I was going to start cooking dinner, when all of a sudden, I heard a knock on the front door, and George started barking. It was still storming badly outside, and I was confused who would be knocking on my door in the middle of a huge thunderstorm. I wasn't expecting anybody either. George kept on barking, and I walked over to him and had him go in the bedroom so he would quiet down. Then I walked to the front door as the knocking continued. When I got to the door, I was just about to open it and see who was there, when suddenly I saw the knob turning and heard whoever was on the other side of the door try to open it. It was locked, but they had still tried to open it, and my hand was only about a foot away as I was reaching for it. But now suddenly I didn't feel so safe, and decided to look outside the window before opening the door. Whoever was there kept on trying to open my door, and I walked over to the window instead to look. I saw a larger-looking male with his back to me right up against my door trying to get in. I remember he had longer black hair, but I couldn't see much else through the rain. After the man stood there for another minute or so, he then turned around and walked away back to the street. The guy was soaking wet, but he didn't really seem to care for whatever reason. This whole situation was strange to me, but I was hoping that the man just had the wrong address or something. After that, I went back to the kitchen and started to cook. It was maybe 30 minutes later when I heard George barking loudly again. I was afraid that the man had returned. I didn't hear any knocking on the front door, though. I walked over to the living room and looked out of the window. It was still storming really bad outside, but I could see that the man was not at the front door, and didn't see him anywhere else either. I walked out of the living room and down the hall to my bedroom where George still was. When I looked inside, I saw George was barking and looking towards the window. In my bedroom window stood the man with long hair. He was back, but he now had his face pressed up against my bedroom window looking inside. I made eye contact with him, but he didn't move. I was terrified and ran out of the room, bringing George with me. I shut the door, and we ran to the kitchen, which was at the opposite end of the house. I took a few moments to catch my breath and calm down. My heart was racing from the scary situation, and eventually, I decided to go back to my bedroom and see if the man had left. I figured I had to have scared the man off, but even after he saw me, the way he just looked at me in my eyes and stared at me was extremely creepy. When I got to the bedroom, I took a deep breath and went in. I looked to the window, and thankfully the man was now gone. After that, I walked over to it and looked around outside. I couldn't see the man anywhere, and this made me feel a little bit better. But when I was still in the bedroom, I heard George start to bark like crazy again. I left the room, and this time went back to the kitchen to see the man standing there with his face pressed up against my window again. This time, he had a very creepy smile on his face. I took George again and ran into the bathroom. I now decided to call the police on the man. As I was calling, I heard several loud bangs coming from the window. I stayed on the line with the police until they arrived in case the man was able to break in or something. As I was waiting, though, I didn't hear any more noises. And by the time the police arrived, the man was long gone. They didn't find him anywhere. I never saw the man again after that, but I would like to know what he was doing there and why. This happened about 5 years ago. At the time, I lived by myself in a small house. One night, I had gotten home from work and was watching TV. All of my windows had blinds over them, and I had most of the lights on. The volume was also up on the TV, so I had no idea that there was a big thunderstorm going on until I suddenly heard a loud bang of thunder coming from outside. I had been watching TV for a while, so I got up from the couch and walked over to the window. I looked out into the night to see the rain coming down and a flash of lightning. It seemed like a pretty bad storm. I closed my blinds back up after that and went back to the couch. I wasn't back at the couch for more than 5 minutes though, when suddenly everything in the house went black. I realized that the storm must have knocked the power out. It was suddenly all dark and completely silent aside from the sound of rain coming from outside. I felt around in the dark until I was able to find my phone, which I had left next to me on the couch. Once I found it, I turned on the flashlight on my phone to be able to see. I knew that I had a portable lamp which ran on batteries in my closet, so using my flashlight, I walked over to my bedroom. Once inside, I began to look in the closet. As I was in the closet looking there, I then heard a noise coming back out from my living room as if someone was walking. I had hardwood floors, so it was especially loud when you walked on the floor, and mine happened to creak a little bit as well. There was no question in my mind that somebody was walking through my living room. I got a really bad feeling and didn't know what to do. I thought there was no way somebody could have gotten into my house, because I'm always really good about locking the doors and things like that. I got up and walked out of my bedroom with the light still on my phone. Once I stepped out into the hallway, I shined the light into the room for a second. As the light passed the living room, it revealed a figure of a man seemingly walking about 20 feet away from me through my living room. I jumped back and ran back into my bedroom. I couldn't believe there was actually somebody inside my house. I went into my closet and this time got completely inside and shut the door. I became as quiet as I could and heard the same noise of someone walking around the living room. This continued for probably a whole 10 minutes. I was hoping whoever was there wouldn't come into my bedroom, and I was literally holding my breath. The strange thing was that obviously they had seen me because of the light I had shined in the room, but they never left and weren't coming into my bedroom. Finally, the sound stopped. I got super quiet for like 10 more minutes. I was probably just too scared to move, but eventually I was able to get up and leave my closet. Just then, the power suddenly came back on in my house. I walked over and turned on the light. Then I looked out my bedroom down the hall into the living room. I didn't see anybody now. I carefully walked all around the house, checking every single room. Whoever had been there was now gone. As I looked around, nothing seemed stolen or out of place either. I then checked all the windows and doors, and they were all closed and locked as well. I have no idea how the person got in or left. This was one of the strangest things to ever happen to me. I still don't know who it was. A few weeks ago, I was driving home in my car after a late night workout at the gym. I lived maybe 10 minutes away, and basically just drove on the highway for 5 minutes, then a quieter road for 5 more minutes until I reached my street. About 2 or 3 minutes into going home, it started to storm outside. It very quickly became a bad thunderstorm, and there was lightning and a strong downpour of rain. My windshield wipers were going as fast as they could, just so I could see in front of me. Thankfully, there weren't too many other cars out on the road, and I drove really slow. Eventually, I made it off the highway into the quieter road, but when I did, the rain seemed to increase. This road wasn't lit as well as the highway, and I couldn't see more than probably 10 feet in front of me. It became so bad that I decided I needed to pull over on the side of the road and wait until the visibility was better. I didn't want to accidentally go off the road, because on this road, there was a deep ditch and woods on both sides, making it more dangerous. I pulled over and listened to the rain beat down on my car. It was one of the heaviest downpours I had ever seen. Then, all of a sudden, through the cracks of thunder and pouring rain, I heard something hit the back of my car. Then I heard it again. The sound was as if something was hitting the back passenger's side door. I looked behind me, and through the rain I saw nothing at first, but then noticed there was a man standing outside next to my car. He started kicking my side door. Then he ran around to the side of my car to the front, where he tried opening my driver's door. I looked to the man, who was not wearing a shirt and had long blonde hair. He then just ran back in front of my car and disappeared into the ditch. I drove off, and I was really startled. Even though the visibility was still terrible, I didn't want this guy trying to get in my car. I had no idea what the guy was doing, but I figured he had to be insane. I was able to make it home okay, although I drove super slow. I made it back inside, and once there, I looked out my front window at the storm that was still going on. I saw into the street. There appeared to be the same shirtless man. He was just standing right in the middle of the road, looking at my house. I was terrified, and ducked down from the window, hoping that he didn't see me. A minute later, I looked back again, but the man was now gone. I was so scared he was going to try to break in or something that night, but he never did. I still don't know where he came from, if he was in the woods or what, and I don't know how he got to my house or who he was. These are things that still creep me out.